Paul Chapo.
Good evening, everyone. It seems like it's been a long time since we've been here. Man, I tell you, thank you all for being here tonight. It's going to be an incredible night. You know, obviously, yesterday was a very complicated day. If you went to the parade that morning, it was absolutely so much fun. When we were standing, there were so many happy people. Everybody was getting along just fine, and then it was crushed by a couple bad actors. But we're not going to let that affect what we're doing here tonight and what we're doing across the city, because this is an incredible city with so much love and compassion, and we're just going to keep it going. We're going to show the city what it's all about. So, all right, Dan, we never start a F.I.S.H event without two things. First is a prayer, because God always comes first. So I'm going to ask my friend Bill to come up and say a prayer, and then he's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Holy Father, I come to you today, asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture bonds and community. I'd also like to take a moment. We've had a lot of servicemen in the last month or so that have been injured and killed. So between that and the events that went on yesterday down at Union Station, we're going to give a moment of silence here. We ask the Lord to guide us in our wisdom. Sometimes we have a lot of things go on that we don't understand, and we just ask God for help in all that we do. Amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you.
Hey folks, this time I'd like to for thank a few individuals who have made the ultimate sacrifice over the last few weeks. It's been a rough few weeks. On January 11th, 2 SEALs were lost at sea. Special Operators Chris Chambers and Gage Ingram. January 28th, 3 soldiers were killed by a drone strike in Jordan. Sergeants William Rivers, Kennedy Sanders, and Brianna Moffitt. February 6th, 5 Marines went down near San Diego. Sergeant Alec Langan, Captain Benjamin Moulton, Captain Jack Casey, Captain Miguel Nava, and a local hero, Lance Corporal Donovan Davis. You want to talk about?
Yes, seeing in the room we have our friend Colonel Randy Jones here, who spent some time with Lance Corporal Davis' father. But we have an event. We'll talk about it a little bit more in the program. But you know, you never know what's going to happen when you're, just doing life. I had breakfast with a gentleman a couple weeks ago, or last week, that we're talking about his son and getting a service dog. And we talk about how we need to come up with a name for the service dog, because every service dog that we present has a name that means something. And it was a little later that found out that Lance Corporal Donovan Davis from Lakewood had lost his life in that crash. So that is going to be the name of that service dog that we present in May, Donovan. So also a local hero that I've known for a very long time. My wife and I have been very close friends with Colonel Donovan and his beautiful wife Norma. He was the first Medal of Honor recipient from Vietnam, and we just lost him a couple weeks ago. And very, very difficult losing this guy that, oh my goodness. Quick story about him. Our first golf tournament 11 years ago. We're doing a putting championship. We've gotten into our combat golf tournament every year. We have a moment where you have to select a service branch you have to putt. And he saw it, and he said, how far? About 40, 42 feet. Hold my cane. I grabbed his cane. I looked at it and he putted. Someone handed him a putter, dropped the ball. He looked at it, just a break left, just a break right. And it just fell in the hole. He hit it, and it fell in the hole. The place went crazy. He dropped the putter like a mic drop, grabbed the cane out of my hand, and like just sashayed away. It's one of my favorite memories of Colonel. And but we're going to have his service in April, and so anyway, so yes, Dan, we lost a lot of incredible men recently, served our country. Freedom's not free. So as Dan said, this is our monthly F.I.S.H speaker series. We do this every single month. It's our opportunity to bring people together to fellowship and just have a good time and share some stories. Some of the stories that you've heard, you'll hear, that never been shared before. So it's the first time that they're shared. So it's very healing, very cathartic, not just for the speakers, but the people in the room. And so coming up in March, we have an incredible gentleman. Again, we went fishing. I know that Chris and Joe were out there having lunch one day, and they met this incredible man. Turns out he's written a book. He wrote the book really for himself and his family, so he could put pen and paper the memories, the things that he experienced. He was a Jolly Green pilot in Vietnam. He started out in flying jets, but they needed helicopter pilots, and so he's going to share that story next month. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Is he in the room? He said he was coming. Ed, are you here? Not yet. Okay. He said he's coming. So March 22nd. Some of you might recognize this Marine right here. Jerry Ingram joined the Marine Corps at age 15 and a half, excuse me. At age 16 and a half, he was tank commander on Iwo Jima. Jungle Jim was the name of his tank. He was one of the few survivors that, from all the tank, whatever, that made it home in one piece. Jerry was the guy that got this Iwo Jima anniversary ceremony started out at Fort Leavenworth, built to raise some money for the memorial and everything. So March 22nd at 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., we're going to do a ceremony out there. If you can join us, please do. And then afterwards, we'll have the reception right here at the American Legion Post. And speaking of armed forces, all right. So, last year we moved our Armed Forces Day event, which is the biggest in the Midwest, over to Wyandotte County. The New Century Airport was under construction. They were doing some ramp work, so we couldn't go there. So we moved over to Wyandotte. We're moving back to New Century. And we're very, 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 very excited because a lot of fun stuff comes in. Things that we didn't have last year, helicopters, planes, we hope, a lot more stuff. The all-veterans skydiving team said that they're coming back. That should be a lot of fun. And as I said, we will be presenting a service dog to a Marine. And that service dog's name is going to be Donovan. And it's our hope that, that Gary will be there as well, his father. All right, so really excited. You guys know this guy, right? Noah Gray, great friend of F.I.S.H. Really excited. He had a terrific game. As you can see, Mary's pregnant. I think the baby's due in April. And we just wanted to put that up there because Noah loves us and he watches this. And so, what an incredible game. So, number 83. All right, and so it's not. Let me get this. I don't want to mess it up. All right, so it was about 2.5 months ago. John and I met for coffee, and I was trying to convince him to come out and join us as a speaker. It usually takes a little while before we can, convince these people to come out and share their story. So 2.5 months ago, we were at Scooters talking about it. Little did we know that, what happened Sunday would happen. So anyway, a little bit about John Lohmeyer. He's a 4-year letter winner for the Emporia State and was captain in 1972. He was named to the NAIA District 10 and GPAC All-Conference First Team, leading the Hornets to the Great Plains Athletic Conference title and a 3rd place ranking in NAIA polls. Following his his time at ESU, John was drafted in the 4th round by the Chiefs and played 4 seasons as a defensive lineman, starting 15 games and serving as special teams captain. John also spent 10 years as partner and broker for an insurance company. He also has 10 years of experience in the banking and finance industry. He joined the Emporia State University Foundation as a major gift officer in 2011 and has served as the foundation's director of development. He's also the former president of the Kansas City Chiefs Ambassadors. And of course, John also broke in number 87 for Travis Kelce. He'll be telling you more about that. Ladies and gentlemen, John Lohmeyer.
Thank you, Paul. So here's the deal on the number. First of all, I got to get myself started here. Okay. Can everybody hear me now? Yeah. Too loud now, probably. So when you become a chief, they give you a number. And I was pretty happy when I got my number because I found out that next to me is going to be Buck Buchanan. Then I got Walter White, and I got Otis Taylor. So I was in pretty good company, right? And I just grew up down the road in Emporia, Kansas. So I had a pretty good little history of the Chiefs and knew that they had just won the second Super Bowl they played in, but Super Bowl IV was the one that they had won. So just guilt by association, I was in a locker room with many of my own heroes. You know, Lynn Dawson, Buck Buchanan, Bobby Bell, Curly Colt, Jan Stinrud. That's a pretty impressive group. Now, fast forward to 2023-24, I'm part of a group called the Ambassador Group. And when you think about a group with the Chiefs, many of us think about the Redcoats. So there's 2 groups that are in play for the Chiefs. One's the Redcoat group, one's the Ambassadors. The Redcoat group was a group of 100 business people, both men and women, that agreed that when the Chiefs were going to become the Chiefs and they were moving the team up from Dallas as the Dallas Texans, that each person would sell 100 season tickets. Okay? So an expansion league, the American Football Conference League, was going to put a team in Kansas City. They were going to play in Memorial Stadium. And 100 people agreed to go out and knock on doors and probably lean on their friends to say, hey, would you buy a season ticket to the game? Right? Can you imagine doing that today? Pat Mahomes does that, doesn't he? We've turned that ticket sale over to Pat Mahomes, but in those days, that's what season ticket holders did. And I can remember vividly, because it's been about 50 years in my little brain, that we got off of a charter flight from Oakland, came back to Kansas City. We played a late afternoon game or something. It was 1:30 in the morning. And we were at the old airport, so now I'm really dating myself, right? The last year that they were at the old airport, walked off the jetway, and there were 25 business people in their red coats, 1:30 in the morning, cheering us on. So in that way, I would have to say that, you know, they were my heroes then, you're going to be my heroes tonight, and I'll tell you why you're going to be my heroes. But the Red Coaters are near and dear to my heart. If you think about it, they created that financial bridge to make sure that there were enough butts in the seats to fill up the stadium, and from there, you know, what, 4 Super Bowls later, we're on a pretty good jag. So I always, when I have a chance to talk, I always used to say thank you to those Red Coaters because they're important. The Chiefs ambassadors are made up of former players. And they started 37 years ago with the endorsement of Carl Peterson, who was the general manager, and Lamar Hunt. And the concept behind it was really interesting because if you were a football player at a college and you got connected to the Chiefs either through free agency or a draft, and you came and played for the season, after the last game, after the last game, you would go to the stadium the next day, they would give you a physical, and you'd say goodbye to them. And you had to go someplace. So you go back to your college, where you might be a hero, or you go back to your small town or your big city. And what our players did as a collective group said, why don't we build an organization that encourages our players to put their roots down in Kansas City, stay here, work here after you're done playing, and raise your kids here, and that's exactly what happened 37 years ago. So one thing that you say, well, that makes perfect sense, why would anybody want to do that? No one else has ever done it. There isn't one other ambassador group in the whole NFL. Now they've come in and they've studied this. They've come in and they've interviewed Mark Hunt, Mark Donovan, ambassadors, but when they've gone back, they haven't been able to put it together. And I think it ties to the Hunt family. So part of what I always try to communicate to people are kind of those unique and unusual things that I see that I think are unique and unusual that you probably hear about from time to time. And if I could connect some dots here tonight, I'll have done what I want to do. So what the Hunt family does that's so different, and if you listen closely to Andy Reid, every time he is asked a question about longevity, his time here, he always references the uniqueness of the Hunt family and how they let the people that are doing their job really do their job and not interfere with that. And that is really a little bit unique in the NFL, because if you had Jerry Jones over here and you had Lamar Hunt over here, you can see the two opposite ends of the spectrum, right? So just think about that in your work day or your personal environment. Isn't it nice when somebody trusts you to do your job and gives you the tools that you need to do your job? And so that's really what's going on here. And I think Lamar recognized that if a lot of the players that he drafted were from these historic black colleges, HBCs, if you're familiar with that term, so Buck, Otis Taylor, Willie Lanier, all came from these small black colleges, right? And when they got to Kansas City, it was really in our interest to encourage them to stay here and put their roots down here and live here. And that was one of the key components. So I share that with you because that's the intent. The other part of it that parallels, I think, what F.I.S.H does is it allows the team to kind of take care of each other. So you have a network of players that you're with in the off season. You're working out, and when I played, honestly, we didn't make enough money to do anything else. So all of us had jobs. So after we had our physical, we had to run and get back to work and get a job, right? Because that's just how it was. And in today's environment, that's not really part of what happens. The componentry here, though, is that group that we've had, we, just like F.I.S.H, we've had our own supporters who said we like what the ambassadors do. So we have 2 events, just like Paul and I talked in detail. You guys have events to raise money. We have a gala in the spring, a golf tournament in the fall. And over the course of those 37 years, we think we've raised right at about $4 million. And all of that flows through us directly and goes right back into the community, primarily for inner city kids around education and health. And where many of the shooting victims are, Children's Mercy Hospital, we support them. We support Big Brothers and Big Sisters, Camp Quality, where kids go that have cancer. So it's kind of a really neat experience, too, as a former football player. A lot of us have not had a lot of personal experience on philanthropy. You know, how do you take what limited star power you have and help direct that energy towards helping somebody else? And I see that being a close parallel to what you guys do too, and gals do too, and that you take your wisdom and your knowledge and you're helping your own compatriots, and that's a wonderful thing to do. I want to refer real quickly to my notes so I stay on pace here. I mentioned the Hunt family. Somebody said, well, give me an example of what it's like. It's like you live in Texas, and one summer you got a chance to work for the Hunt family out at the ranch, and you baled hay, you put the hay up in the barn, or you built fence, and then that was a summer job, and you went away, and 10 years later you came down that road and you said, I'm just going to pull in there. You pull in there and they say, hey, John Lohmeyer, how are you doing? We're just getting ready to have lunch. You come in, sit down. And they want to know where you've been, what your children's names are, what you're interested in. It's a phenomenal thing. And we've all seen people in politics that have that skill, but this is beyond anything I've ever seen. They truly have a lock on anybody that's ever worked for them and played for them. So when they were in the Super Bowl in Miami, I went down and they had a designated area before the game where we were sitting there having some adult beverages. And I sat down with a young guy and I said, well, tell me what you do. He says, I'm a security officer. I said, you work for the chief? He goes, oh yeah. I said, well, what do you do? He says, I come at 9 o'clock at night and I stay till 8:30 in the morning. And I said, well, what do you do? He says, well, I walk around, rattle doors, right, and have a list of things that I do. And I said, well, how long have you been with him? And he said, 3 years. And I said, are you thinking about going someplace else? And he said, no way. He said, I just love the way they treat me. And they treat him so well that they had flown him down to Miami to go to the Super Bowl and had a ticket for him. And that's done for virtually everybody that works for him. So those are stories to remind, I guess, ourselves of what's happening in front of our eyes. It's happening for a reason, because people are taking care of each other and appreciating all the work that's going into that. As an ambassador, we've done some pretty interesting things. We, at one point, were able to get about $500,000 worth of books, Disney books, and I don't know if you know that Disney owns Marvel books, which is Spider-Man and Catwoman and all of those. And they gave us $500,000 worth of books, and we were able to bring them into Kansas City, and through Patrick Mahomes Foundation, which is called 15 in the Mahomies. He already had a relationship with Lead to Read. And Lead to Read is a 501c3 that people go into schools and read to kids that have fallen behind in their reading skill set. So in 3rd grade in our country, the kids are given a reading test. And at that point in time, they're either reading at 3rd grade level, they're reading ahead of 3rd grade level, or they're reading behind 3rd grade level. If they're reading behind, then they put them on a reading recovery program, which means the parents or the grandparents are to read to them 15 minutes a day, hopefully 5 or 6 times a week. So we were able to give away those books with Patrick's Foundation, which was a real blessing. First time we've really been able to do something with an existing player, although we had done some things with Tyrann Matthews and Chris Jones. It's wonderful that you've got a relationship with Noah. Greg, that's phenomenal. And I don't know anybody else that's doing it at the level that you are. So Paul, that's a real compliment to you and your board. That's a neat thing. So on the giveaway, we picked 5 charter schools, had tables just like this, and had all the books spread out, and the kids got to come in and pick 4 or 5 books that they wanted, and they put them in their bag and went home, and it was a really neat deal. And Patrick was so appreciative that when he had his gala, he offered us a table and recognized us for our work. So we get some opportunities to do things like that. And a year ago, too, we brought a truckload of food in through Feed the Children, which is a national group, and we gave away a semi-truckload of food to veterans' families, and we did it at Arrowhead. Then this past Veterans Week, we gave a truckload of food away at Kansas Speedway. And that's been a collaboration of lots of groups. So hopefully you may have known some people that have benefited from that. That's something that I try to stay involved with, and that is finding sources of books, food, anything that's of value that we can bring that's away from Kansas City into Kansas City and Leavenworth for our veterans. So that's something that I wanted to let you know about. We've had some, I've had the opportunity to go to the Command and General Staff College at Leavenworth, and the chiefs, as most of you know, they've got a strong relationship with the military, particularly if you go to the ball games. You see that, how that relationship's brought to light time and time again. When a guy has a chance to play football for a short period of time, and it's generally a very short period of time, most players on average just play for 3 years. And that might parallel kind of the military service, if you think about it. But when that part of your life is over, then you have to be prepared to move on. And it's challenging, quite honestly, sometimes for our guys to figure out what they're going to do and where they're going to go, because they didn't all finish with a degree. They didn't always have a plan that they wanted to become an educator or go into banking or finance or join the military. So a lot of our players, I think, have similar situations that somebody that's in the military, all of a sudden you have the realization, what's my next step? And that's an important step to be successful so that they can go on and move forward and find success beyond the second step. So that's one of the things that we do as ambassadors, because our ambassadors are multi-generational. This room is multi-generational, right? You all have fought in different conflicts, different wars, you have different ages, but that's one of the beauties of it that I like about our ambassador group, is we're all of different ages, and it gives you a chance to have connections with friends and things at that age. So I think that's unique and unusual. I've had a blessing of being able to go to Whiteman Air Force Base and get under one of those big B-2Bs and up in the cockpit and ask them questions about how they are able to fly that far and get back. And they don't tell you anything, of course. You know, one's sworn to secrecy. That's it. Fort Riley, I grew up in Kansas, so I'm a Kansas kid. It's just like down the road for me, so it's really easy. And I also wanted to tell you a little bit about a thing that I'm proud of, and that is about 3 years ago, the Chiefs had an inquiry from a group called SPARK, S-P-A-R-K, like a spark plug, and it's an adult learning program that's run through University of Missouri at Kansas City, UMKC. So if any of you, this will be a little bit of a shameless plug, Paul, but I teach a class on the NFL/Chiefs, and I've done it for 2 years. It costs about $35 to become a member, but they have great courses. You can either get it through a Zoom, sit home and watch it on your computer, or you can come to a classroom. Our classrooms are made up primarily of 50-50, 50% are men, 50% are women. They're in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, and we have one lady who's 90 years old, and she loves football. And so we've been blessed to have Jan Stenderud come, Willie Lanier, Mike Garrett, Kendall Gammon, and so we have a 2-hour block of time that players come in and usually talk a little bit about themselves, but we're trying to also focus on, you know, what's going on in front of our eyes here. How did this team get so good so fast, right? And unless you see something different, I'm expecting the same results, aren't you, next year? So the idea is you have to slug your way through this preseason and regular season so you get a chance to go to the big dance. But that big dance is kind of messy. You got to go through the top teams, and every year, now the Chiefs have won the Super Bowl. And the NFL's designed around last place to first place. Last place to first place. So if you're in first place, you play the hardest schedule of any team next year, right? And if you had a poor season, then you're going to get the easier schedule, and you're going to get earlier draft picks, right? So it's designed to keep everybody's fan base really activated, because you think, oh, we just need a new coach, we just have to get the first round draft pick, and things are going to flip around. So our Chiefs are going to have their hands full next year, but I'm very confident that I don't know how they're going to get there. And each team has the same salary cap, so it's so unusual in this world. Like if all of us were bankers in this room, we had a bank, each owned a bank, and somebody said, well, you can only spend $1 million a year on your salaries for all of the people in your bank. Well, we'd all be thinking about, well, gosh, the president's pretty expensive. Maybe I can get by without a good president, right? But in our case, we can't get by without Pat Mahomes, right? So we have to build our team around that Pat Mahomes concept, and San Francisco 49ers would just be, right? Purdy did a pretty good job, right? But he's low on their payroll, and they're not rushing to give him $1 million. So that's the part to me that's really kind of fascinating. You can watch how these other teams kind of put together their strategies and their plans, and then, of course, it plays out in front of our eyes, right? You get to form your early season opinion, and then it starts to roll out in front of your eyes, and if it's not good, then the coach is gone, and somebody's the assistant coach is now the head coach. But, this past season is pretty typical. I think they lost 8 or 9 head coaches who had just stood at some podium and told this person is going to take us to the promised land, right? And now this person's going to take us to the promised land. So that's the fun part for me of the NFL. I told Paul I'm kind of moving around a little bit, but the other thing it's worth paying attention to is this global approach. So when the Chiefs get a chance to play in Germany, it's not by accident. Clark Hunt, who's the chairman of the Chiefs, has been chair of the NFL's International Committee for 12 years. The NFL wants to have teams outside the United States of America, and this is how I think they can pull it off. If they had 1 team or 2 teams in Germany, they would have them aligned with the AFC East. So they would play Miami, Buffalo, all that East Coast, and so one of the teams from here might fly over there and play, and when they would come over here, they probably would stay for 2 weeks. And the NFL would probably build a training camp someplace where they could all go and have all the equipment and all the rooms and all the things that they need to conduct their weekly business. And then they would fly back and forth. And the truth is, to get from the East Coast to Europe is about an hour and a half longer than it is to get from Miami to Seattle, but it's not that much further. It's really not that much further. Any other questions on that or thoughts on that? Does anything that's going to happen? You do? You think that's good for the game? Absolutely. Okay. Well, the other option is they put teams in other cities, right? And we live in Kansas City, which we all love, and we know through the World Cup soccer opportunity, the Chiefs got to host a World Cup soccer. We're the smallest city in North America to host that soccer thing. So it shows that we're doing really well for our position and things like that. The idea of moving not only in Europe but Mexico and other places, I think we'll eventually see those things happen. I think they're going to broaden the ownership rules for NFL teams that might move away from just like one individual to a consortium of people, so it might be more like an investment group that could own a team. So if you pay attention to that, that might be something of interest. Now, to kind of wrap up here, and I'd love to take some questions if you have them, and as Paul said beautifully at the start of the meeting, this is a tough time for us because of the things that happened yesterday at the parade. And I mentioned that, Children's Hospital and other organizations that we work with are really already focused on the mental health of our children, and that's going to be something that I think we're all going to have to pay close attention to. And one of the things that I enjoy in my life is I've always had early influence with mentorship. So what that means in my world is I've always had mentors that I've called on, both men and women, that I call and they help provide guidance for me. And I also serve as a mentor for right now 8 different young people. And they're small, some of them are in high school, some are in college, some of them are out of college, but I love to be able to be in that environment. So that's one of the things I wanted to leave with you, kind of as a concept, to think about that are there people in your world that you could offer a steady hand to, or somebody that you can just be there to listen to them from time to time? Because it's one of those crazy things where when I lose one of my young people, another one shows up at my doorstep, you know? And when I lose one of my mentors to some life experience, then I find another one to do that. So it's been a good formula for me, and it may not work for you, but I want you to kind of think about it. There may be some people kind of in your orbit right now that you could offer some help to, be a steady guiding hand to there. Okay, Paul, you want to open it up to questions?
Yes. Any questions? I got one. I know you scored a touchdown when you played in the NFL. Tell us about that.
Well, I scored my first touchdown when I was a Chief, and Wilbur Young, we were playing the Houston Oilers. Dan Pastorini, I don't know if you remember that. Anyway, Wilbur, I think, got the ball loose. I picked it up and I ran into the end zone and scored. So I had the ball. I still have the ball at home in my little trophy case. The harsh part of it was once I got in the end zone, I got tackled. Wilbur was 340 pounds, took a flying leap and landed right on top of me, knocked the wind out of me, so it took a little bit of time to get up. But when I ran off the field, Coach Strand came out and had like a big handshake like this. And I was shaking his hand, and for some reason the photographer was in the perfect position that took the scoreboard behind that said Lohmeyer touchdown. So couldn't do that if it was a movie, you know, but I've got that too. So that was a real cool deal. Yeah. And now let's talk about wrapping up here, because one of the things I tried to move through the program pretty quickly. I feel blessed to be able to tell you that the Chiefs, through our ambassador work, have given Lohmeyer and anybody else that's an ambassador a Super Bowl ring for the last. Yeah, well, I didn't have to get knocked down or get anything bad happening to me, but I have those rings with me tonight. And then I also brought a replica Super Bowl trophy from the win in Miami. Okay? So here's what the offer is. If you've got time, we'd love to kind of get set up so you could come up, hold the Super Bowl trophy, put on Super Bowl rings, use your phone to take 2 or 3 pictures, okay? And knock your grandkids out, or your kids just say, look what happened. Went to a meeting night, went to a special fish meeting, and look what I got. So we want to try to do that. If some of you have places to run into, try to get up the front of the line, but we'll try to do that.
You guys good with that?
Good to do that, and we'll move through that. And the crazy thing about this is I learned it the hard way, which I always have to do the hard things. But you know, that Super Bowl trophy, when you finally get a chance, to hold that Super Bowl trophy and feel the weight and have a ring on your finger and have a little bit of an attitude like that. I have attitude, and we always ask you kind of hold the ring up a little bit, not in front of your face, but right here, because the camera goes towards your face, right? And we'll put those 2 Super Bowl rings on and then get a good picture of it. So what we'll do is we'll get set up kind of right here so we can have fish as the backdrop. And you're going to come up, and I'm going to hand you the trophy. I'll hold it, put these rings on, and then we're going to get down and take a picture, okay? That sounds like a plan?
Yes. All right. So, John, before Okay, we got to do something first, though. No Doc coined you. It's a military tradition. There's a fish coin in it. I know you're 2X. So next time you're out, would you mind wearing that fish shirt somewhere?
Absolutely. Send a picture in. I love it.
Send us a picture.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome.
I'll cherish them both.
Thank you so much for being with us. We're going to do
Thank you.
pictures. But one thing we're going to do, too, is we do it every time, John. You're going to love this. Watch your ears. All right, I did do it earlier, but I'm going to do it right now. I want to hear it from the Army. All right. Marine Corps. Oh, my gosh, there's only like 6 of them. Navy. Okay, that's pretty good. Air Force. I love it. Coast Guard. Coast Guard.
Have you ever had a Coast Guard guy?
Yes, we have. Space Force. Not yet. Not yet. Okay. All right. Okay, and we're going to do the raffle in a little bit. Chris and Joe are going to be in charge of that, and you're going to help out. But before we do that, hey, so John, we had one of our very own, Jeremiah Bull. You were talking about, the guy, the security guy.
Yeah.
One of our very own was a security guy for the Chiefs recently. Jeremiah Bull, I'll get you up here. Jeremiah, look at the size of this guy.
I know.
If we would have had another lineman go down, they had his uniform ready. So tell us about being a part of all that, Jeremiah.
Well, last summer, I got a phone call from my old man sergeant major. And usually when he calls, I'm going to make sure I'm listening. But I wasn't listening at first. He goes, Bull, he goes, how would you like to have a side job? And I go, oh, I'm good. I don't want to side job. And he goes, Bull, shut up and listen. And so I go, okay, I'm listening. And he goes, how would you like to be security at Chiefs? And I thought he was talking to the guys that wear the yellow jackets and just stare at the stands, all the fans having a good time. I was like, I don't really want to do that. I want to be in the stands having a good time. He goes, Bull, shut up and listen. And I was like, I'm really listening this time, Sergeant. And so he goes, how would you like to be on team security? So went in and interviewed and hired me on for my first year in team security, and it's been a heck of a ride this year. So right now, I'm at 1,000% on the Super Bowl list. So I guess I'm going to keep.
Talk about the Hunt family.
So the first thing I want to say, the biggest thing I took from being around the organization is their faith. Their faith in God. As soon as, they won the AFC Championship, the first thing I remember is Clark Hunt, getting credit to God. And that's what I want to do too, because if it wasn't for God, I wouldn't have been privileged to be in that position to be able to accept that team security. So, and that trickles down all the way down. I can tell you some stories. One of the big things is they pray before every game. Patrick Mahomes, he'll go to the end zone and he has a little ritual and he prays before every game. The players have chaplain services when they travel on the road, and they have church services before on every travel game. And so I just found that to be awesome. One of the coolest experiences of this whole thing was after we got our Super Bowl win, is every player and staff knelt in the locker room and Reed led us Psalms 23. Wow. And that was an awesome experience that I got to experience. So there's so many cool experiences. I'm part of a great team of security guys. I'm very privileged to been offered the opportunity. I got to travel, see stadiums I never would have gotten to probably see. Be on the sidelines for the Super Bowl, which I never thought I'd go to the Super Bowl. So, there are some moments I'm like, how did I get here? It's just like, what did I do to deserve this? So, I'm very privileged. The whole organization I've got a lot more respect for because, and that goes from the Hunt family down to the coaching staff, the players. I've been welcomed in like a family member. And you can probably attest to that. And to become, a guy just off the street that nobody knows and just welcomed as just, part of the family, that's a pretty cool feeling. So, the other cool thing is actually not being the biggest guy in the room. You know, I remember the first time Chris Jones walked up to me, and I was like, I'm actually here to protect you. That's fun. I was like, so. But no, anyways, it was an awesome, it's been an awesome ride. This last week and a half was like, I mean, it was just an awesome experience. I got to, you know, go to, out to Las Vegas with the team a week ago, and got to, you know, experience all the stuff that goes on in the preparation of leading up to the Super Bowl, you know, the opening nights, the families coming in. They had a big party, you know, on Friday night at the hotel at Lake Las Vegas, Western Resort, which was pretty cool. I was like, man, I remember I woke up the first morning there because we got in pretty late, so it was dark, so I didn't know how nice the place was. And I woke up and opened my curtains, and I was like, wow. I was like, I'm actually working right now. But I don't know. It was just an awesome experience, and I thank God for everything He gave me. So, and I get a Super Bowl ring too.
Yeah. Hey, one last thing before we start on the raffle and start lining up for pictures. I want to recognize a friend of mine that joined us tonight. She is a Gold Star wife, Stephanie Tully. Thanks for being here, Stephanie. Stephanie's with the VA and your friend Viv, so thank you. All right, so Chris, Joe, you want to start the raffle going? And yes, sir.
I have a question for a speaker, please. I heard years ago that when Lynn Dawson was playing back, you alluded to the lesser pay back in your days, that he had a side job or side business, that he operated heavy equipment. Is that true? Did you know anything about that?
I didn't know that Lenny was broadcasting. Lenny was a broadcaster.
In his playing days, I'm talking about.
In his playing days. And then he stayed in that, he did the thing with football on Thursday nights with Nick Boncani. Now Ed Lothamer was one of the guys that you may be referring to. Ed was one of the guys that got real in early with the concrete pumper trucks. You guys remember those? The old days they used to build tall buildings with a crane and a bucket, and the Germans came up with a way to pump it. Well, Ed was one of the first people to be an owner in that, and they not only did Kansas City, they did Tulsa, they did Oklahoma City, and then they did Miami. So Ed Lothamer, who's now unfortunately deceased, probably made more money after football than all of us did together. All of us did together. Lenny was in broadcasting.
What did you do for your side job?
My side jobs, my side gigs. I was trained as a teacher, and I don't know why it dawned on me one day I'm not going to be able to make enough money as a teacher. So I swerved. I went into banking to begin with, and I went to Colorado and did that. Then I moved back to Kansas. I was president of a steel fabrication company. So when I mentioned White and Air Force Base, we built 3 of the 8 hangars for the B-2B bombers, buildings, bridges, things like that. Then I went into the insurance business, I went into started a medical business, and I had car business. So I had 3 or 4 things going on at one time. So, jack of all trades, master of none. But I had an interesting time. I tried to always have a great group of people, and we always did well. And Cheryl, that was all the people that were working for me. Yep.
What's going to happen with your number?
Oh, my number 87, did you see this? So when you come to the locker room, they assigned, like George Karloftis got 56, I think. And he gave it, we get a different number, but they probably just gave it to him. So at that time, the number had been on the defensive side. So Aaron Brown was the defensive end, I came in as a defensive end, so I got 87. Now it's gone over on the offensive side. Some guy from Cincinnati or Cleveland Heights. You know what I'm talking about here? Huh? He's got a brother who's got a big beard like that. They get on the pot. No shirt, yeah. He has a big, yeah. And they talk on the radio, they make zillions of dollars. He dates some lady with only one jet now. I guess she's sold it. You know that? So that's my only thing. I usually tell the story that I gave it. When I turned it in, there were no grass stains on it. And not a torn stitch at all. It was Yeah, no lipstick, no red lipstick.
They're gonna retire your number, aren't they?
Yeah, they are gonna retire my number, but it won't be for anything I do.
All right, so,
Ask if any veterans don't have a ticket.
yeah, any veterans that do not have a raffle ticket, any veterans that do not have a raffle ticket, so we're good to go. All right, so this is how we're gonna do it. Let's start over here. So if you wanna line up and get your picture taken.